proceeds from the... You don't need to upstage me. It's going to happen, believe me.
It's, you know, ironically and coincidentally, it's Peter Yarrow. Peter, we're doing a concert for the Good Life Center. You want to say hello? I'll put you on microphone.
Have you picked up the phone?
Uh-huh. Speak to us.
People listening in the audience?
Yeah. They are.
Then put them on speaker.
They're on speaker.
I am on the speaker, okay. Off the bat.
Peter, think green, Peter. Think green.
It is Noel Paul Stookey, and it was in the free zone of the happiness outside of the Trumpian scale. They were able to have a good time now. Let's get into this other mode, singing up. And together, that's all now. So I love you, oh, but I'm leaving you. And I think this is something we should do from time to time. Yay!
Okay, babe, I'll call you back.
Well, that is pretty amazing. As I was saying, Noel brought some CDs, which are, and he's donating the proceeds to the Good Life Center.
Unfortunately, Puff is not on any of them.
So, without further ado, this person obviously needs no introduction. We've all had our experiences. I mean, I can't remember a time way back when I was in college, when we were in the dorm, and Peter, Paul, and Mary would not play in the background. Marches in Washington, Central Park, New York. They're just a part of so many of our histories, personal histories, that it's an honor to introduce him and to welcome him back to the Good Life Center. He's a part of the original group of stewards after Helen died, and he obviously knew Helen and Scott very well. And so I'm going to turn it over to him. Thank you.
Thank you, Warren.
Yeah.
Bosworth, late in '68, decided that the time had come to settle his estate. The riots of the summer were creeping into fall, so he packed his family in the car, chose to leave it all. Out on the open road, with his elbow in the breeze, he pulled his woman to him, and he gave her heart a squeeze. With a song he'd been singing, and they waved to the people that they passed. All along the highway they were winging, headed for the paradise at last. John Henry Bosworth's family on the farm, Elizabeth sitting, knitting from a ball of yarn. Kool-Aid's in the kitchen, Buttons up in a bed. Johnny takes a long pull on his pipe and lays his head back in the easy chair with a good book in his hand. He closed his eyes and thanked the Lord for making him a lucky man. With a song they've been singing, and they waved to the people that they passed. All along the highway they went winging, headed for the paradise at last. 1984. The sky is red, and there's a knock upon the door. Every piece of scripture and every prayer he prayed had brought him to this moment of this particular day. Open the doors, he cried, let the brothers and the sisters inside. Got everything to give now and nothing left to hide. With a song he'd been singing, thank you, wave to the people that pass. All along the highway they went winging, headed for the paradise of past. And I was wondering if you had been to the mountain to look at the valley below. Did you see all the roads tangled fast in the valley? Did you know which way to go? Oh, the mountain stream runs pure and clear, and I wish to my soul I could always be here. There's a reason for living way down in the valley that only the mountain knows. I told my wife I was probably going to lose it because these songs are so autobiographical and they go back so far. They go back to us living in the craziness of New York City, and then thinking we escaped it by moving to Westchester and discovering that chaos was just as close as a random knock on the door, because isn't that where Paul, Peter, Paul, and Mary lives? And fame does a very strange thing to your private life. And so unaccustomed as I am to public speaking, because the guitar and music has always been a kind of a way of bridging embarrassment. Tonight is going to be full of pregnant pauses and thankfulness for Helen and Scott Nearing, who I didn't really know all that well. I mean, of course, after we moved here, met them and sang right outside this window, actually, in 1982 with Paul Winter, who came up, and we did a song that we're going to be doing next, actually. If I was smooth, I would make that segue right now. But this is not about being smooth. This is about being, well, as I said, thankful, real, authentic, and I want to apologize. Usually I'm really good off the cuff, but I don't want to let this opportunity go by without placing credit where it ought to be. And some of these songs, I mean, that one I remember because I have played it recently, but some of these songs I have not played recently, and I'll be referring to lyric sheets, and you'll say, didn't he write that song? You'd think he'd be able to remember it. So in 1982, and that's really a jump ahead, because by 1982, Betty and I had been almost 10 years into the ownership of a hen house on the coast of Maine, which had been converted into a recording studio, the front end of which had been torn down and the timber recycled to create a house across the street in South Blue Hill. My family, my dad, I'm an only child. My dad and mom moved here in late 70s, and we created probably the only operative solar house in certainly in South Blue Hill, but in the Blue Hill area. It was passive air, and my dad was a mechanical engineer, which is why we have the microphone rigged up this way, because the DNA made itself evident, and we said, well, we don't have a guitar stand, well, we'll use this, or a microphone stand, we'll use this camera stand. One of the first people, aside from a close friend, Eddie Motto from New Hampshire, and I'll talk about him later because he's part of the stone masonry lessons that were inherited from and shared with Scott and Helen. But one of the first people to come to the studio was David Mallet, and at the time he had the theme song on an NPR garden show, and I just loved this. I loved the song. I had no idea that the scope of his writing was going to be so deep and so how shall I say, integrated with the world in which he lived. He's a farm boy from Sebago, and the garden song is just the tip of David's iceberg. If you get a chance to listen to David's songs, you'll love them. But I know that he would want me to do this and encourage you to do it with me. Someone bless these seeds I sow. Someone warm them from below till the rain come tumbling down. We're pulling weeds and picking stones. We are made of dreams and bones. I feel the need to grow my own, 'cause the time is close at hand. Grain for grain, sun and rain, I'll find my way in nature's chain. I'll tune my body and my brain to the music of the land. Ooh, here comes the chorus singing down inch by inch. Go my road, gonna make this garden, gonna make. All it takes is a rake and hoe, and all it takes is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile inch by inch by inch by inch, and row by row. Someone bless these seeds. Someone warm them from below till the rain comes tumbling down. So plant your rows straight and long, and temper them with prayer and song. Mother Earth can keep you strong if you give her love and care. An old crow watching hungrily from his perch in yonder tree, say, in my garden I'm as free as that feathered thief up there. Without the guitars now, you ready? And inch by inch, Row by row, gonna make this garden, gonna make this. All it takes is a rake and hoe. All it takes is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile ground, inch by inch by inch by inch. And row by row, someone bless these seas. Someone warm them from below till the rain comes tumbling in. And row by row, someone bless, someone warm them from below, someone warm them from below till the rain comes tumbling down. Now, the tendency when you talk about Scott and Helen is to get serious. Scott was incredibly serious, and I was fortunate enough to get a hold of a book called The Making of a Radical, which Scott wrote, and I'll tell you, there are things I discovered about him. I mean, did you know that he debated Clarence Darrow? That's how far back the man went. Did you know he debated Paul Douglas? And he had this funny, I call it funny because it's not my style, but we'll get into that later. But he had this attribute of not wanting to take money for what it was that he was doing. Now I'm a performer. I am the grasshopper, and the ants pay me to articulate what's going on in their world. I'm sorry, was that a bad analogy? I love ants, don't get me wrong, and I am an ant myself, but I don't think Scott ever thought of himself as an ant. I think in his quest for self-sufficiency, he had to make some hard choices. And I know that some of those choices involved disassociating himself with his son, even, because his son had chosen the way of, and Scott, it's a hard thing to swallow nowadays to look at the hard-edged quality, because there was a hard-edged quality to Scott's life, but his contempt for what was considered the oligarchy, which is, the ruling, powerful economic thing that he guarded against, was part of the reason that he just kept. He would move to the least comfortable of circumstances when he was asked to go on trips to deliver lectures. They'd try to put him up in a hotel, and he would find out what the common laborer was making per hour, and then he'd go find the hotel that the common laborer was staying in. That's where he would stay. He gave talks for, thousands of people. He gave talks for 2 people. He gave talk in one woman's house where nobody showed up. They were all afraid because he was such a socialist, a rabble-rouser, a believer in the equity of humankind. And thank God for Helen, who came along and I think really tempered his heart. She, of course, had her own life prior to Scott. Scott had been married once before, and but nonetheless, I think there were very few opportunities for real laughter. It's hard sometimes. As you know, in this political climate, it's hard to be funny or light, but there are certain ingrained truths all around us in nature Whether it's, a couple of chipmunks that are carrying on and you're wondering, now, is that a male and female or two males fighting or is that two females talking about what their tails look like? My dad grew up in Utah, speaking of chipmunks, and he captured one once and was the delight of the entire family because he shaved it to look like a lion. And I think even Scott would have laughed at that, and so it is. I present to you, after the garden song, a poem that I wrote. It reminds me of, it's not E.E. Cummings, it's Auden, maybe? Auden? Was there a... Ogden Nash, yeah. Or maybe it's not him, I don't know. Anyway, I hesitate to do this in a Down East accent because I'm not really good at it, but I think sort of it will capture your heart more if I do. So forgive the mispronunciations, and I'm looking around to see if there's any locals here who really condemn me when I get back home. No, I think I can try it, dear. The asparagus. Have you noticed that the asparagus, or am I the only one, fragrantly defies its passing though the meal is done? What is it about that vegetable, if I might ask the question, that causes the odor to linger after its ingestion? Now, I've been told that only 30% of the people in the room tonight know what I'm talking about. But some of us have this unique quality where... But I digress. Our bodies transform fruits and produce quickly into waste, to be dumped, sometimes with ceremony, in their proper place. But body chemistry must find the asparagus unpleasant, since after dinner its bouquet is immediately present. Kings upon their golden thrones and queens on ivory daises must proclaim the asparagus, despite their royal biases, a most tenacious vegetable, and surely you agree, or I suspect that soon you will when you sit down to prepare the unique asparagus. Its aroma quite surprising, pungent at first bite, and then again like phoenix rising. Olfactorily reborn, transcending even death, I guess, I raise my nostril in salute to the asparagus. Thank you. Oh my. So I know it's a little helter-skelter. I am going to try to move along with a calendar in mind, and not only of getting you out of here before tomorrow, but also the kind of the what happened when as I got here. So Betty and I moved in 1973. Fell in love with the Hen House. Fell in love with Blue Hill. Fell in love with the Hen House. No small part the move to the country because of Helen and Scott, with a little assistance from Gordon Bach, living in Camden, who, when we visited him, said, "Don't bother looking here or south. You won't find any property on the ocean. If you're looking for property on the ocean, you got to go north." So we drove all the way up to Eastport, came all the way back down. But I'll tell you, entering the main street of Blue Hill and seeing that town hall, and then discovering that there was a Stevens Academy, and that there was $1.5 million hospital, and that there was a library, well, we just kind of got sold on the town, and the only place that was available was the Hen House. So we bought it. Now, I don't want to go bragging, but we got the Hen House, 136 feet long, 33 feet wide, I think. Yeah. On 27 acres, across the street from the ocean, for $27,000. It was, well, I guess you could call it an eyesore if you're looking for a mansion, but for us, it was delightful. And we kind of hoped we could just kind of rehab it and move right in. But the 7-foot ceilings were kind of depressing, or would have been if we had tried to make them work, because Betty and I are kind of tall people. So we moved into a house down the street that was owned by a family who was renting it, called the Coops. Well, don't you know, word got around town that the Stookeys were living in the Hen House because they were staying at the Coop. But it didn't stop our appreciation. We stayed in the Coop for a while until Helen Sylvester, the wife of the man who built the Hen House, came into the studio and said, "Did you know that the Conroys are selling their house across the street?" And that's when we made the move to South Blue Hill. One more time. There we go. Lying awake in the hours before morning, watching the light push back the dark. That big burning ball always reminds me of how insignificant my worries are in the big picture. It's always the little things that seem to get me when life isn't fair and nothing goes right. I take it out on the people who love me. It's easy to do when you lose sight of the big picture. In the big picture I see it all so clear, what I should do with my life while I'm here. Love all my family and friends while I can, and reach out to my fellow man. I believe it's the truth that we all have inside us, tested and tried by those come before. Ask any wise man, he'll surely tell you, money or love, which matters more in the big picture. In the big picture I see where we really are, on an oasis in the middle of stars, sharing this earth in our fears and our dreams, more alike than it sometimes may seem. Sitting in front of this beautiful sunrise, feeling the light where it touches my face, I let myself imagine forever and hope that someday I'll find my place in the big picture. I see how distance and time are the ways that we've measured what we've left behind. The here and the now are the moments that love gives us to see the beauty of the big picture. Yeah, so the move to the country had a lot of symbolism, a lot of there's a righteousness that's inherent in nature, and the lessons that we learn from being in it are really spiritual in nature, because they're connected with how this all began. And for me, a songwriter who was trying to marry a spiritual rebirth with a move to the country, the analogies that were available to me were manifold. And I used them a lot. You know, when you have an experience and it's powerful, to find the language to tell other people about it is the biggest challenge, because the tendency is to use available labels, and I fell into that habit, and it wasn't until England much later, when two people walked up to me after a concert I had done there and said, "We have a word of the Lord for you." And I thought, oh boy, well, here we go. This was not a Peter, Paul and Mary concert. This was a solo concert. And I bent down next to them, and they said, "We don't know what it means." And I said, "Oh, well, okay, I hope I do." He said, "Don't use my name." Well, now there's a challenge for you. Having gone through a spiritual change, and I'm being told that there are better ways to explain it. And I couldn't help but fall back on the beauty around me, the preciousness of the community. And so I was driving up to talk to a Chamber of Commerce. I would imagine sing a couple of songs for a Chamber of Commerce up in Bangor, and I got these verses, and I'm going to tune because you want me to. Yeah, you'll be happy. Deep in the woods, sound of an axe, clearing a field by the sweat of his back. A man of the soil plants his seeds, prays that the earth will provide what he needs. He turns it over to the Father, he turns it over to the Son, turns it over in the Spirit, until the kingdom comes. Turn it over to the Father, turn it over to the Son, turn it over in the Spirit. Of a bus from Birmingham, a man with a smile reads that letter again. It says, "Come home, Pop, the struggle is through. When we heard you found Jesus, we decided to turn it over to the his head, and the visiting minister in from the sticks reads from the Bible. Here's what it makes: turn it over to the Father, turn it over to the Son, turn it over in the Spirit until the kingdom. One more time, turn it over to the Father, turn it over to the Son, turn it over in the Spirit, and watch the kingdom come. Now that would have been way too much gospel for Scott. I think Helen could have accommodated it, but nonetheless, in reading about Scott, I got to read you this paragraph because you'll go, oh, well. This was from his book called The Making of a Radical. But listen to this. The universe in which I have lived during the past 80-odd years is a well thought out, carefully planned, magnificently organized enterprise. Only Scott would use the word enterprise, right? Articulated and adjusted in minute detail. It is neither absolute nor arbitrary. Two of its most significant aspects are the constancy and fidelity of its function, and the unceasing variations or deviations from norm. Our universe is, at the same time, our universe is becoming. So I think Scott probably tended towards the aversion that most people have, which is to not really buy into religion as a business, but know where their spiritual core is and respond to it accordingly. When I first came here, and the Hen House was half demolished, I was thinking about the fact that it was a pretty ugly looking building. Paul Sylvester's handiwork notwithstanding, it was designed for hens, and so it had a utilitarian purpose. But now it was going to be a recording studio and an animation studio and a home possibly for a radio station, and all kinds of things began to unfold from it. So I thought, it's like, and once again I turned to the spiritual symbols, and I said it's like the building block that was rejected that ultimately becomes the cornerstone of the building. Huh. And so I wrote that song, and that became sort of one of the basic songs of WERU when it happened, and it's done a cappella, and it's kind of fun to do because it has a part in it that men generally gravitate to, particularly those who have been brought to concert situations by their wives or significant others, and they're kind, but they don't want to participate really. Is it another sing-along? Oh my God. So there is a part just perfect for you. Now the lyrics are the building block, building block that was rejected, became the cornerstone of a whole new world. And then it just repeats again. And the melody goes, the building block that was rejected became the cornerstone of a whole new world. The building block that was rejected became the cornerstone of a whole new world. That's the chorus. Now there are 3 verses, but the next time we come around to the chorus, I want the gentlemen who feel uncomfortable to feel comfortable doing the John Wayne part. Because you don't have to sing, you just have to say building block. And I Everybody with hair on their chest can feel comfortable doing that, okay? And or not. It happens right after each of the first lines. The building block that was rejected became the cornerstone of a whole new world. The building block that was rejected, nice, became cornerstone of a whole new world. When I am down and unsuspected, with a burden that does not show, I think what time has resurrected, and how the sun can make the water flow. The building block and the building block that was rejected became the cornerstone of a whole new world. The building block and the building block that was rejected became the cornerstone of a whole new world. There is a man who has collected all the sorrow in our eyes, and he gives us love as God directed, but he is seldom recognized. The building block and the building block that was rejected became the cornerstone of a whole new world. The building block was rejected became the cornerstone of a whole new world. So when all your dreams have been collected and your vision has been restored, remember, love, you are protected by the truth your heart has learned. The building block and the building block that was rejected became the cornerstone. The building block and the building block that was rejected became the cornerstone. Became the cornerstone. Became the cornerstone of a whole new world. So the concept of submission was, I think, probably one of the harder values. It is one of the harder values for all of us to understand. That, turn it over. I mean, when you put the seed in the ground, you got to pretty much turn it over. You've seen what's happened before, so you have a little bit of faith based on trust, or a little bit of trust based on faith. But it's not quite like the character that runs off the edge of the cliff in the cartoon and doesn't fall until he looks down. You can depend pretty much that the seed is going to produce some food for you. But you have to submit to nature and the world around you to do it. So I think that's why I'm so impressed with Scott's narrow passage, because introducing Scott, and I'm going to go to the paper again. Introducing Scott in the winter of 1954. Stephen Fritchman was a minister of the Los Angeles First Unitarian Church. Says, to me, as to thousands, Scott Nearing has been a merciless, lovable, provocative, suggestive prophet of righteousness, an exemplar of common sense in living and of courage. To use that 70% of the brain most people let rot unused, and to exercise that 98% of the conscience which most people do not exercise at all. In this new day of the toad, this time of babbling fools in high places. Remember, this is winter of 1954. Of idiot misleaders with their fingers in the public jam pot and their consciences in the deep freeze. Because of Scott Nearing, we should all be a little more courageous as we face the world today.
Wow.
Really. So I'm going to do a. Are we running late? Are we running just right? What are we? We're okay, Warren. Okay. All right. Well. All right. Well, I'm going to do a little two-part. More courageous as we face the world today. Let's see. Impeachable. That's what you are. Impeachable. And yet so far. You've avoided closer scrutiny, even though Vladimir Putin, he opened many doors. It only makes you more impeachable. And when someday we could say you're fired and you go away, you may have thought you were unreachable, but history makes some moments teachable. Someday Pence may be impeachable too. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have had some people walk out. But, you know, and I'm looking for, I'm a kind man, and I'm looking for a kind way to express my concerns. And you know what? It's harder and harder. But I did come across the lyrics to this song on a Facebook page. And it's just because once you hear the concept, you go, right, it's tantamount to Gandhi. It's tantamount to laying down, putting flowers in the tanks in Tiananmen Square. This song is, well, I'll let you judge. The election was so long ago. Most say what's done is done. But of course that's easier to say if your side has won. We've had our disagreements on that, we can agree. And when they say it's time to work together, I can see how that's a good idea in principle, but too much compromise will make us all accomplices. And that's when I realized I have a few exceptions. I should put them in this song. It's a list of work-togethers that I won't be working on. I won't work together to dismantle healthcare, or work together to lower the minimum wage. I will not work together to allow the weakening of gun control by the NRA. I cannot work together to persecute the Muslim. Oh, work together to build a wall. I will not work together to limit the freedom of the press. Without that freedom, freedom sure to fall. But I will stand, my God, I will stand. I will stand and do my part. I will stand and work together for my conscience, for my country, for my heart. I will not work together to ruin the environment or desecrate sacred crime. Why would we work together to deny global warming with all the scientific proof that we have found? I will not work together to defund education or work together to suppress the vote. I will not work together to eliminate the funding for reproductive rights in UK. But I will stand, my God, I will stand. I will stand and do my part. I will stand and work together for my conscience, for my country, for my heart. I will not work together to cripple the unions or work together to unplug PBS. I cannot work together to normalize the racist or tolerate the hatred they profess. I will not work together to turn away the refugee or work together to approve the water bomb. Oh, I will work together to create more nuclear nations, as if more of them could get it over war. But I will stand, my God, I will stand. I will stand and do my part. I will stand and work together for my conscience, for my country, for my heart. I will stand and work together for my conscience, for my country, for my heart. Thank you. I'm going to draw it to a close. The governor of Maine, Kenneth Curtis, giving Scott an award in 1971, had these words to say. Scott got an award from the State Commission on Arts and Humanities, and Governor Curtis said, "History is replete with examples of men of vision who, like Thoreau, listened to the beat of a different drummer and who were destined to wait for a laggard world to come abreast of their doctrines and heed their warnings. Long before any of us were born, Scott Nearing was doing battle. He spoke out against child labor, against war. He predicted the decay of great cities, the pollution of air and waters, the decline of personal independence. Economist, environmentalist, socialist, lecturer, and writer. He prescribed the good life and practiced what he preached." There's a warning in the wind, comes wailing through the trees, a depression in the shoreline, led by the pounding seas. There is a lesson in the drought that brings a country to its knees in these times. We are dancing with disaster when we live beyond our needs and pretend our hungry souls are not related to our greed. Life's a journey, but it's not about the speed in these times. In these times, we must be mindful of the gift. In these times, use our hands and hearts to lift the fallen spirit in this land, planting flowers in the sand, reaching out a helping hand. As the perfect storm approaches and the gale around us roars, no longer can we close our eyes or hide behind our doors. Our choice is fewer now by what we've chosen to ignore in these times. The ship of state is drifting, and it's getting hard to steer. It's a complicated issue, but the direction's pretty clear. And each of us is who we need to get to there from here in these times. Oh, in these times, we must be mindful of the gift. In these times, use our hands and hearts to lift the fallen spirit in this land, bringing water to the sand, reaching out a helping hand. In these times. In everything that's living, there is a promise of a love planted in the seeds below and in the stars above. We must listen to its message, become faithful stewards of these times. Oh, in these times, we must be mindful of the gift. In these times, use our hands and hearts to lift the fallen spirit in this land, planting gardens in the sand, reaching out a helping hand. In these times. Thank you. I'm going to pretend that I ran all the way out there, had another hit on my beer, and came back because the last thing I want to leave us with, and I know that Helen and Scott would love it as well as Warren. Thank you so much for setting this up tonight. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains. noticed when this song is performed, and more people are choosing to do it on large national sporting events, they sing this first verse, and then they have an interlude, and then they generally do the first verse again, and then maybe a cute little bridge, and some dancers come out, but basically after the bridge and a modulation and the orchestra is played, they come around and they do this first verse again. I think the reason is because the language that was used in the original version is a little, difficult for us to relate to alabaster cities gleaming and pilgrims' feet trotting, So much to the consternation of my wife, who cautioned me against being audacious, I have written 2 new verses for America the Beautiful. And when I get through singing them, I hope that you will join me in singing the first verse again. Oh, nation of the immigrant, the slave, the native son, whose loyal families labor still, that we may live as one. America, America, renew thy founder's call. Let liberty and justice be the right of one and all. Of forest green, of lake and fertile land, where seeds of hope are tended by thy sons and daughters' hands. America, America, the earth still calls to thee, where human life and nature strive to live in harmony. You know what to do. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains, majesties above a fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee and crowned thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Thank y'all. Warren.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Warren.
Yeah, please remind everybody to sign the guest book on your way out. And I'd also like to thank Elliot and David for helping to set up Noel Paul, and thank Charles for filming tonight.
Yeah.
And we have a couple of board members, Allison and David. So if you have any questions about the Good Life Center, we're here to answer them. Hang around, eat popcorn, relax, and enjoy the rest of the evening. And take your time leaving. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Warren.
Great way to end it.